It's Halloween. Let's get spooky. Amnesia: The Dark Descent is a great game. Usually I would steer clear of games that have a name, a colon, and a continuation of the name. This normally indicates a sequel or the desire for future sequels. Big red flags. Usually I play games that have just the one name. Any more than one word and things start to get excessive and I break out in a rash. But in Dark Descent's case, I'm more than willing to make an exception because she fucking slaps. Cooked up by the Swedish warlocks over at Frictional Games and released in 2010, this baby still holds up really, really well. What you've got with Dark Descent is a relatively straightforward string of puzzle hubs, dotted with plot breadcrumbs with some very sweaty monster encounters thrown in the mix. Everything else about Dark Descent's frightening experience is done with careful lighting and unbelievably sexy sound design. This game won awards for its sounds, and it's no wonder why. Things that go bump in the night are useless if they don't bump to a satisfying degree. Here, we bumpin' like a boss. With careful use of noises, Frictional renders really scary situations, sometimes with no monster even being present. Your brain fills in the blanks concerning potential danger, and this makes for a smart and very intimate game experience. Top tier shit, guys. 10 nyctophobic freakouts out of 10, chef's kiss. If you haven't played the game before, go and play it, then come back with a nice steaming mug of Bovril and we'll have a chat. Already acquainted with the haunted halls of Brennenberg Castle? What was your favourite bit? What was your least favourite bit? Let's have a chat down below. Now turn down the lights and drop your trousers as we journey through Amnesia: The Dark Descent. Let's dive in. So, through this survival horror game world, we take control of main man Daniel. Just Daniel. Single name, nice. 2 thumbs up. Now, I don't really want to break up the flow of the puzzles with nibbles of plot here and there, so hand the TP while I lay down an earth-shattering info dump. Now, who is Daniel? What's his deal? Daniel is a British archaeologist and research assistant who came across a strange relic in an Algerian tomb, a broken orb. I say he's an archaeologist. Banish all thoughts of Indiana Jones. This is the Victorian era. A lot less Nazi punching and smooching babes, and a lot more shouting at foreign labourers in loud English while pointing at a crypt that needs ransacking, parasol in hand. He does himself a fumble-stumble into a chamber which suffers a cave-in, and he gets his sticky little mitts on a strange orb possessing the same dimensions and properties as Leonardo DiCaprio's head. But damn and blast, it's broken into shards. He's trapped for what feels like minutes, but 'tis hours. And those who tagged along on the expedition suffered terrible ends, but Daniel is pretty happy with his cracked Inception keepsake. Dan zips back to England and manages to reform the orb, the pieces slotting together perfectly with the help of some tar. He suffers terribly from hideous nightmares, and the darkness begins to close in all around him. He's being hunted by an otherworldly shadow monster that acts as an orb guardian. Hollywood looks after its own, man. Big mistake. He searches in vain for information about the orb, writing to everyone he can, and one day gets a letter from some sus Prussian bro, Alexander of Brennenberg. Yo, come to my crib, homie, let's pour one out. I know all there is to know about balls. I'll protect ya. No cap. So, Dan's at Brennenberg Castle, just chillin'. Alex has given him a sweet guest room. Everything's nice, although the guards are a bit odd. They smell of spiced wine and shuffle around in long robes. But it's Prussia, so he thinks nothing of it. Alexander takes Daniel down to his inner sanctum and says that they need to do a ritual to banish the shadow. Okay, sure, why not? Little did Daniel know, but Alexander is really a being from another world that took a human form, and he's been partying in Prussia for a couple hundred years. He's got his hands on a magic ball of his own, pinched from some guy called Agrippa. It's okay, we'll be hanging out with him later. And Alex knows all about the shadow stuff. He says he wants to help Daniel, but really he wants to create a gateway to return home to his lost love and those that banished him in the first place. To assist in this ritual and to keep the shadow away from the door, Alexander's been torturing animals to extract vitae, a powerful energy source gained via their suffering. Yikes. But dogs and pigeons aren't cutting the mustard. He wants to progress to torturing humans, a much stronger source across a vitae. Double yikes. Using a wily combination of truth and lies, Alexander manipulates Daniel into doing hideous tortures on kidnapped townsfolk before killing them to extract the vitae and performing blood rituals to keep the shadow at bay. But really, Alexander just wants to get his bony old fingers around Daniel's shiny ball. Its power will help him to rip open a portal to flee this world. However, Daniel's hands become more and more bloodied as his terrified desperation increases, the shadow getting steadily closer. In his frustration, he brutally murders a captured girl, Elise, who escaped from her prison cell. The horror of this breaks through his madness, and he sees the monster he's become. He longs to regain his innocence. He longs to get his revenge on Alexander for making him into this beast. He longs to forget. So he downs a forget-me-now potion, writes himself instructions to kill Alexander in his inner sanctum, and thus begins the game. As the action opens, we stumble down some corridors at about the average speed of a concussed orange. We're delirious and keep repeating our name to ourselves. It's Amnesia time. After a refreshing power nap on the floor, the game gives us almost full control of Dan, and we can start shambling about a little quicker. I say almost full control because we can't run yet. Not until we get the lantern. The first few rooms introduce us to the core mechanics of the game, namely closets and drawers. These can be opened, and they contain useful stuff like tinderboxes for lighting candles and torches. They get stored in our inventory. We'll get a hint at just how many yummy, spooky sounds are going to be jammed in our ear holes, and we'll understand our fear of the dark. Yes, there are nasty monsters in this game, but the worst thing to befall you in Dark Descent is darkness itself. See, Dan has nyctophobia, which means he's scared of the dark, and he's had this affliction since he was a boy, as his evil dad used to beat him up and lock him in the basement. Bloody awful. So, if Daniel spends too long in the dark, his sanity starts to drain and he gets all woozy and hallucinates. If you play on hard, yes, there are 2 difficulties. Daniel can actually die if he spends too long in the dark. Hard difficulty also increases monster damage and makes pickups more scarce, but that's for hardcore players. I like the normal adventure just fine, but I imagine the increased difficulty is a pleasant challenge. You can see how badly mangled Daniel's sanity and health are by opening up the inventory. Each have a 4-step representation of good, okay, not good, and bad. Each division breaks up Daniel's maximum health and sanity, 100, into lots of 25. Each stage has a colored corona linked to the level of current health and sanity. Green is good, okay is yellow, orange is not good, and red is, of course, bad. When you complete puzzles or reach checkpoints, the screen will give a short blue poof, and your levels will be restored to their maximum, which is a huge relief, especially when the hallucinations are making you a bit nauseous. You'll find, too, that you can pick up items if you hold left click, and then you can throw them with right click. This will come in handy later to distract monsters and to engage in physics puzzles. Yeah, boy. Before too long, we find ourselves in the old archives, which consists of just a few rooms, and then, bam! Not wanting us to miss anything, the game literally throws a lantern at us. Easily the most useful item in the game. It casts a very strong light and lends an exceptionally powerful sense of safety. No shitty 2010s flashlight here. This baby's the real deal. Only problem is it runs on oil, which gets depleted. It can be refueled by small bottles or from large drums, but they don't crop up too often, especially if you don't scavenge enough. Word to the wise. If you see a drawer or cupboard, search it. You'll likely find tinderboxes and sometimes oil or some delicious laudanum to heal our wounds. Yeah, you know what laudanum is, guys? Very popular remedy in Victorian times. It's opium dissolved in alcohol. I guess nothing chases away your fear of the dark like floating along on a soft cloud of heroin happiness. And you certainly won't be worried by any damage you've sustained. Don't forget to scavenge. Using the lantern, we travel through a door that's recently been smashed in by some unseen groaning horror, and come across a letter written by past Daniel for our present self to read. We get a taster of Dan's shame over the awful shit he's done. He tells us he's quaffed an amnesiac tincture to regain his innocence, and he gives us our core objective. Would you kindly go to Alexander's inner sanctum and kill the son of a bitch? After this introductory collection of creepy corridors, and with our mission firmly lodged in our head, Dark Descent takes off the training wheels and 300 style boots us into the bottomless pit of the real game. Hang on, something's missing. Ah, there we go. Well, howdy doody. Here we are in the entrance hall. Take it all in, folks. Gorgeous. Gorgeous. Sure, some of the decor has seen better days and the front door gives a worrying bulge when approached, but it's all quite nice. Traipsing around, we get shunted into a remembered conversation between Daniel and Alexander, and dang it, the voice acting is top-notch.
Come, bring the lamp. You've been to the refinery, have you not?
Richard Topping and Sam Mowry absolutely own these roles. Alex lets us, the audience, know in a roundabout way that his inner sanctum is found far beyond the refinery, through a door off the main area. Unluckily for us, though, the way is barred by a fleshy growth of cosmic yuck. Daniel does a big think. We need some acid to burn through this chonky barrier. The thought gets logged in the memento section of his journal, where you can also access all found notes and diaries, centralized scribble spot. Excellent. So, we're offered 3 paths to travel by in this area: the laboratory, the wine cellar, and the archives. In the lab is a chemistry set in which you can combine 4 ingredients to make a powerful acid. Dang it! If only we knew which Hey, there's a recipe. Nice. And a chemistry pot. Thanks, Alexander. Seems like he was trying to manufacture Vitae artificially, but only came up with green gack instead. Oh, he's also left behind a memory capsule that contains a rather soppy declaration of devotion for an unnamed lover. Ah, so cute. Ah, and there's also a note that says the ingredients are stored in the wine cellar. Sweet. Let's go. Ah, it's stuck. We need a key. All other avenues exhausted, Daniel heaves his thick legs up the stairs to the dusty rooms of the archives. There's a very strange, unsettling, throbbing, buzzing sound in the air here that I love and hate. Love it for how affecting it is, and hate it for how it puts my teeth on edge. In these initial rooms, we discover some pages from Daniel's personal journal detailing his trip to Algeria. These entries, combined with flashbacks, are what fills in the gaps in Daniel's memory and inform the player, eventually, that the gormless freaks that roam the castle aren't the monsters after all. Daniel is. Further into the archives, we poke a hole in a wall with the debris of our choosing and burst into our first real puzzle. This one doesn't require any fetch questing, just a little bit of sharp listening. In true gothic style, we've got to yank on some fake books to set off tumblers that collectively open up a secret passage. Divine. In the secret room is our long-lost key to the wine cellar. Good, we could use a drink. But then, what's that? 'Tis a grunt, the lowliest of our monstrous foes. This introduction is super cool. You hear the sound, then the tinkling of piano keys, and you just get a tiny peek of its body before it disappears. Wonderful. Time to make ourselves scarce before he comes back. It's wine time. In the wine cellar, things start to get a bit more spooky. It's awfully dark in here, so lighting the odd torch here and there is probably a good idea. As, depending on how well you navigate the area, you may spend a bit of time bumbling around, draining Daniel's sanity and oil. At the bottom of the stairs is a trail of green goop that leads to the ingredient cuprite on a table. Stuff it in your pocket, that's number 1. Picking it up will set off a monstrous groan nearby. Be on your guard. We also hear what I suppose is a memory imprinted on this place, as it's not Daniel's personal memory. Alexander's servants are toasting themselves silly with his wine. The next room to the left holds a big barrel of oil for your lantern, very useful. It only yields a few drops of oil, so still keep using tinderboxes for torches. There's a bottle of calamine on the floor. When you pick it up, it makes the ceiling collapse, as calamine is known to do. A barrel Donkey Kongs you on the head, and waking up the room is awash with darkness. You hear the screechy, scratch in your ears as your brain is starting to melt. So relight a torch and get busy clearing the debris with your click and hold mouse mechanic. It doesn't take long, but you need to click and move Daniel at the same time. Rocks and beams yeeted, we press on. The next room along presents you with a big pile of gore amidst a forest of empty wine bottles. Clearly the vino has been laced with something nasty, as the memory gives you a shower of rending flesh right in your ear hole. We discover that Wilhelm, Alexander's servant and leader of the Exploding Men, was responsible for rounding up and kidnapping men, women, and children from the nearby town and bringing them to Brennenberg, never to be seen again. He then also explodes, so fair enough. Nabbing the Aqua Regia, we push on back under the stairs, coming to a bottle of laudanum. 1839, a very good year. Picking it up will spawn a grunt down the corridor. Just crouch behind the wine racks. If you look at him, your brain will hurt, so don't do that. He'll soon toddle off harmlessly, so let him do that and round the corner to nab the orpiment, our final ingredient. Time to come up to the lab and see what's on the slab. Putting the acid solution together is super easy, barely an inconvenience. Just double click on each ingredient in your inventory, then click on one of the bottles in the configuration. Whack down your chemical pot, turn on the gas, spin around the valves, and out comes your spicy green goo. Back up the stairs, everything's getting covered in strawberry jam as the shadow closes in. Careful though. It hurts. Apply the acid to the fleshy wall and we're free to go. Phew.
But you can light the lamp now if you wish.
Oh, Thanks, Alexander. Refinery time. And boy, is it dark down here. Why does it have to be so dark down here?
Why is it so dark?
I always feel like there's so much more to do in this area than there probably is, but Daniel has shit to do, so enjoy the shiver from the grunt that was probably doing something embarrassing before we interrupted it. Go through the door near where it appears, go through a succession of doors, and duck into a crawl space near the door that won't open. There's a trapdoor here that's got some sort of marital aid stuck in its winch. Lobbing a box at it frees it up so Daniel can wind the turny thing, lifting the flap. And down we go to the... oh no, the first water bit. Hey, it's the Kank. He's a nasty piece of work. So, play a wet version of The Floor is Lava and stay out of the moist. To avoid a silly whoopsie-daisy and having to double back, take the door to the immediate right, yank on the lever, then proceed right up the corridor, staying on the boxes. There's pickups in the side room if you really want to hang out with our invisible friend, but otherwise proceed through the lifted gate and stay on the boxes. Boxes. Oh, no. We have to slowly wind open a gate in the water with the Kank snapping at our toes. Toss the severed body parts into the water and immediately start winding that wheel as soon as it splashes off to feast. It's a quick eater and the wheel is slow to turn. I feel like even with excellent planning, as soon as you're under the gate, it focuses back on you and you only escape through to the exit by the skin of your teeth. Trying the exit door to find that it's locked is a lovely, nasty, beautiful trick to pull on the player. Luckily, there's a needle nearby that will let us pick the lock from the safety of a box. Through we go, and a sigh of relief. Shit, bugger, I forgot. I thought this was later. Stay on the boxes. There are no boxes. Run. Just run. Stick to the left, jumping over obstructions. They won't block the beast, he'll just sweep them aside. I'm sure the chase isn't as desperate as it's made out to be, but with the strings droning away and the constant heavy splashes right at your back and having to heave open heavy wooden doors, killing any head start you had, it still gets my heart pumping like a son of a bitch. Yep, sweat beading. She's still got it, boys. She's still got it. In the back halls, Daniel can finally catch his breath. It's surprisingly bright in here, so no need to raise your lantern or use up tinders. We've got to take an elevator down to the prison blocks, but the elevator's busted. We need to get into the machine room, requiring a key which is hiding in the guest bedroom, get our hands on 3 control rods, spread around the hub, get the machinery in working order, and get the heck out of Dodge. All fairly easy to do. I like to visit the study first, then the guest bedroom, then, saving it for last because it's a skin-crawling black pit of misery, the storage area. Damn its eyes. The study is quite nice if you enjoyed the dull buzzing that pervaded the archives way back when. We get an insight into some of the stuff Alexander's been researching, namely extreme animal cruelty. Not very nice at all. There's a nice bit of a trip outside when a roar from the approaching shadow cracks a window, which we then break open in true rock and roll style. Daniel has to shimmy his way along a ledge to bypass a collapsed wall. The diversion feels dangerous, but I'm not actually sure if you can fall off. I've never tried. Through another window and we hold aloft control rod number 1, the flow cycle. There's also a note on the correct use of the rods. Make sure you pocket that too for reference. Into the guest bedroom we traipse, which has been trashed by Alex's Goonie guards in their search for us. Daniel also recalls having his journal pinched, perhaps the desecration of which has led to the pages being strewn all over the castle. Or perhaps Daniel tore up his journal himself, I'm not sure which. We get more insights into Daniel's days following his trip into the Algerian tomb. Then after rifling through the drawers, Dan snags a crowbar and levers open the small office. If you stand in front of one of the 2 closets, a grunt will be spawned by the front door, and it's heavily implied that you need to get into the wardrobe, shutting the doors. This is a really nice bit of tense gameplay that was done to death in Outlast. I find it much more believable and effective here, maybe because it doesn't happen every 5 minutes, and is entirely appropriate for the environment. The chonky boy will head back out the way he came if you hide for a moment, and you're free to keep exploring. By the powers of deduction and classical mystery lols, lifting up a wonky painting reveals a glass bottle containing the machine room key. Smash that shit and let's stop putting off the inevitable. It's time for the storage room. It's okay, it's not that bad. It's just really bloody dark.
Why is it so dark?
And you have to do a bit of serious dodging of monsters and waiting in pools of shadow to avoid their patrols while your brain slowly falls away like a wet cake. Looking at the area as a map reorganizes the confusing dark passages into so much sense that you'd feel like a total Burke for being puzzled in the first place. I don't want to overstate the creepiness of this space because, as I said, it's not too bad. But going into it blind is a bit tough. The dark is not just strange and unnatural, It's fucking impenetrable. Your lantern will be the handiest light source here, because you might need to plunge yourself into pure darkness at a moment's notice. But you need to monitor your oil level, so let's stop piss-farting around and zip through. Right, starting here, go left to get a drill part. We need to get 3 bits of drill so we can make holes in 2 different barrels, capture their contents in our chemical pot, and then throw a rock at the concoction to blow up a blocked passage. The other 2 drill bits are found down the eastern passage, in the equipment area. Check the surrounding rooms for them, then combine the lot in your inventory by clicking and dragging one part and applying it to another. Done. Now viciously poke the 2 barrels found in the corners of the equipment area, capture the goop, and zip to the northern passage of the starting area. Apply the bomb mixture to the rock wall, grab an object of your choosing and toss it at the pot. Do so at the top of the stairs or you'll take damage. The explosion radius is pretty damn big. Right. Now the tricky part. This northeastern area seems pretty okay for the moment, but as soon as you travel east and up the stairs to nab the 2 remaining control rods, everything kicks off. A grunt will spawn outside the door and he'll then patrol up and down the connected area. He's not too hard to slip by, but if he's instilling any fear in you, his brief patrol route will likely make you duck in and out of your safety spot, spending more time in this dingy dungeon than you'd care to. So, what happens if a monster spots you? They'll stare at you for a sec, and a rising ringing will sting your ears. Dan will get properly spooked, and if you really linger, the lumpy bugger will start sprinting at you, attacking when close enough. Grunts do 30 to 60 damage on normal and 60 to 120 on hard. Conversely, the tougher variant brutes do 50 to 120 and 100 to 240 on hard. If you're already hurt when facing these guys, you're dead meat. Either way, don't let enemies get that close. Hide, hide, hide. I really like the monsters in this game. They're scary, nasty, but really sad too. Their tortured forms and gagging and groaning fills me with a terrible pity, even when they want to play kiss chasey. I would have thought, looking back, that the lack of monster variety would grow stale super quick, but no. The way in which they're presented and how they're not always present in areas keeps both them and the connected terror as fresh as a daisy. So, nabbing the 2 rods, I like to let the grunt spawn, give it a minute so he walks down the stairs, then follow, carefully. I crouch near the door when he's walking west, his back to me, and I quickly waddle down the right side of the partition while he patrols. From here I break into a run, and then wait where we blew up the rock wall. Another grunt will appear at the top of the stairs. Give him a minute and he'll disapparate. Then run out of this nasty area and never come back. After using the key on the machine room door, go straight and right into the lever room. According to the rod instructions, they need to collectively add up to 8 up and 8 down. This means lift up the levers that register 1, 2, and 5, and the same on the bottom. Done. Down the stairs and to the left, we need to jam our rods into the holes. Ooh. Their names hold the clues to which goes where. Cycle flow, cycle, circle. Trinity, 3, triangle. 4-phase, 4 sides, square. Done. Down more stairs and we need to gather up 3 cogwheels. They're scattered around the area, but it doesn't take too long to grab them and feed them onto the spokes. Then we need 3 blobs of coal put into the furnace and to switch it on. Then yank the lever near the cogs and hey, the elevator lives once again. Let's get the heck out of here. I hope we're going somewhere nice.
Hotel! I'll never tell you! You're just making things worse.
Oh dear. We are in trouble, aren't we? I've found that the connecting areas that link hubs in Dark Descent are far more evil and dangerous than the hubs themselves, except for the last one. The cellar archives, the archive tunnels, the sewers, and the prison blocks. Best to zoom our way through these areas as quick as we can. Hanging around spells death, insanity, or both. The prison consists of a north and south block. We start in the south and break through to the north via a hole in a cell floor, so let's do that. First, clear the crap out of the way, then check the right for goodies, the left for a hammer, required to progress, and up the stairs is a fuck. Okay, up we go. More goodies and a hallway of cells. The one on the right end has a bed you can shove aside with a hole in the floor. We need to find a chipper, or chisel, to widen it with our hammer. The cell to the end of the hall has the chipper. Nab it, zoom back, and let's leave these bozos to bumble around in the dark. Okay, now we're in the north block. A little trickier. We have to fill a glass jar with acid to weaken a lock to then smash with the hammer and chipper to escape while being followed by one of the amorous guards. We'll encounter the other type of guard here, the brute. They have a blade for an arm and have their head open opened up like a demogorgon. They do more damage, spot you easier, and make a clanking sound when strutting around. Although the ones seen here are cinematic only, thank God. No worries. They'll have plenty of opportunities to vivisect us later. Daniel clambers over some rocks and we need to speed to a storage room at the end of the hallway to nab the glass jar. Then we need to rocket to the kitchen, which was near the start. We've got to fill our jar with acid, an excellent thing to keep in a kitchen by the way, and zip to the cistern entrance gate. Easier said than done. A grunt appears and likes to hang around for ages after you enter the kitchen. No enticement can make him piss off except to just wait for a really long time. Alas, once you splash the acid on the gate and whack the lock, a grunt will do a nothing personal kid right behind you, so you gotta wrench the gate open and outrun the sucker. Or just close the gate in his face and watch as he sadly fades away. Time to catch another breath. We're in the cistern entrance hub now, which is largely free from monsters. There's quite a few puzzles to solve here, so I guess Frictional didn't want to frustrate us too much by busting our brains and our balls at the same time. Besides the area's visuals, and they're stunning, the initial bits of puzzling are absolutely knockout. I love where you get tiny wee problems to solve as well as larger fetch quests. First off, we need to extend a ladder down to climb up. However, the lever's all bunged up with rust, but wait, what's that? A handy pipe sticking out the wall, just dripping oil all over the place. Smack it with your glass jar, carry the goop to the lever and tip it on. Nice and loose, just how Danny likes it. Now you have to move the ladder up and down a few times until it breaks the bung pipe sticking in the way. Before shooting upwards, there's a passage on the ground floor which is our exit. It's flooded and needs to be drained. Lucky we're in the right place. We've got to divert the water in the cistern via a lowered bridge, fix the other broken bridge by fussing about in the control room, and then investigate the morgue. Why the morgue? Well, even with the water drain, the exit is hazardous due to a noxious fungi. We need to inoculate ourselves to it by molesting a corpse in the morgue, and then we're tripping down the stairs to the sewer, evil adjoining area number 4. Up we go, and we see that the control room is immediately accessible, but the other 2 avenues are off limits. Yanking the lever to the right of the control room door lowers the cistern bridge. You can now do these 2 rooms in any order you choose, but the other lever needs to be made operable by sourcing up the machinery in the control room. This area is made a lot easier by there being mirrored rooms on either side that you can use as reference for the puzzles you need to complete. The turny wheels require careful listening. When you start turning, you'll hear a distinct clink noise, so stop turning. Do this with all 3 wheels and then you'll get a satisfying poof of steam from the machinery. The levers are simple. Down, up, down. Copy the configuration from the room where they can't be moved in the other room and hey, another poof. In here is also a crank on a table. You'll need this to get out of here as the operating wheel on the slippy slidey door will snap off. In this area, you'll also come across 3 pipes. Treat them like the cogwheels used in the elevator puzzle and shunt them along to the final room. Here you just need to put the pipes in the correct positions. If it isn't right, you can always take them out and start again. Nice and forgiving. High five for that. Machinery repaired, we can now yank the other lever in the cistern entrance. The second bridge will lower and then stall. Rude. I like to jump down to the floor, throw a rock to the upper level, and from here throw it onto the stalled bridge. It'll now descend and the morgue is accessible. You can also apparently ride up using the cistern bridge and jump onto the morgue bridge, making it fall. The variety of options in this physics puzzle is really nice. I love it. There's not much to say about the cistern area itself except it's dark, gloomy, and houses a spray of journal entries near 3 valves that need to be turned to drain the water in the exit. Each time you trigger a valve, all lit torches will get blown out, so make good use of your lantern. You'll get a cank fake out when dipping into the water, but you won't be chased by a real one until all 3 wheels have been turned. Then just run like the blazers towards the morgue. Again, the morgue is fairly uncomplicated. There's a dead body on the slab, he's cock and ball staring you down with 0 embarrassment. We need to activate our drill on the body, whereby we'll make a hole in the head and then jam a syringe into the hole. We make the syringe by combining our needle with a copper tube found in one of the adjoining rooms. After that, just jab yourself aggressively with the corpse's blood and you're free to pass through to the sewers. However, we get rudely interrupted at this point by one of the brutes. Hide in one of the rooms with the door shut and keep quiet. You'll be able to hear it groaning and clanking away as this hideous golem walks around. Satisfied that it must have been the wind, he'll piss off, take the initiative, and urinate away as well. I love how this hub's an oasis of calm by Dark Descent standards. Not too many baddies and plenty of time to lower your heart rate and let your brain do its thing. And then we get to the sewers. Peaks and troughs, guys. That's what it's all about. Perfectly crafted peaks and troughs. Let me just put this here and remove it before Civvie's guards send me a cease and desist. Right. The sewers. I used to get so verklempt about this bloody area and I don't know why. Possibly I was still buzzing from the prison's tension, but I found it properly stressful and
it's not. It appears fairly benign to me now, but I think the absence of obvious hiding places in the tunnels made me feel really exposed in the past because, if you're not careful, this exposure can easily lead to a death. So we're faced with a water wheel ahead and the corridors to the left and right. I like to go left first and get the spooky monster out of the way. There's a machine room, another one, with 2 sliders showing small cogs and big cogs. Ratchet the first one all the way to the left and the second one all the way to the right. This will slow down the water wheel so we can jam something in it to continue.
There's somebody at the door. There's somebody at the door.
Oh, a beastly brute will want to hang out, sure, but just let him smash in the door while crouching out of sight. Don't give him the pleasure. Watching out for other random beasts, head to the right corridor now and snap off a rusty pipe. This is what we're going to jam in the water wheel. Crouch under and continue. Going up the room to the right will set off another grouchy brute who'll come bursting through an iron gate like the Kool-Aid Man. Wait it out, then slip through his hole. Now, this area can be easy to die in if you're both too fast or too slow. There's a brute hiding in between 2 water channels that meet. Either way you go, he'll catch you. So throw him off the scent by piffing a rock to distract him and then run up the other passage. Run like the blazes, because he's going to chase you straight away in full-on angry mode. These doors are bastards and need to be heaved open to the safety of an awaiting ladder. I remember there being one door that moved in the opposite direction to the others to throw you off, which is why I had a cheap death right here. First death of the playthrough, shame. From here on, I can confirm that there are no more near-death water pursuits in the game, which is both good and bad. Actually, that's not entirely true. They're so damn stressful, and yet they're easily the most electrifying sections of the game, in my opinion. You're moving slow, the splashing right at your back, having to wrench open doors. Whew. Okay, we're getting closer, but so is the shadow. Prepare yourself for all kinds of nastiness, because the developers are throwing everything at you. I rarely feel safe anywhere here, especially when we get locked up later by the goon squad. Main objective: get 6 pieces of an orb owned by Agrippa, an old dangling dude. Stick them back together as Daniel did with his ball in London, and then enter the inner sanctum and give Alexander a seismic wedgie. Easy. No. Not easy. Be prepared to have your jimmies rustled. So, we need to jump up near Agrippa's body, fixing some gears that'll allow 2 levers to open up the transept and the choir. The choir is easily the worst part, so we'll save that for last. Oh yeah, Agrippa. Who the hell is Agrippa? Well, he's an erstwhile buddy of Alexander's who also knows the way of the orbs and the shadow. He's, I guess, supposed to be the real Heinrich Agrippa, who lived in the 16th century and was a polymath who dabbled in magic and shit. Pretty cool. Devil horns to that. In Dark Descent, Agrippa and his pupil Via used to do extra-dimensional experiments with Alexander, and then they betrayed him, opening a portal that Via disappeared into. Alex wasn't happy with this, so he chained up Agrippa in the nave to live an undying death. Nasty. Gameplay-wise, Agrippa is a way of checking Daniel's remaining morality in-game, and this produces different endings depending on your choices. We can gather 3 ingredients to make a potion to free him from his mortal prison. If we don't do this, we get a selfish revenge ending, or just a plain old death ending. If we do the quest and take his severed head to the inner sanctum, throwing it in a portal, we get what I consider to be the good ending. There's also a 4th ending, but we'll get to that. We've got orb shards and potion ingredients to collect. I want me that good ending, y'all. So, gears fixed and levers pulled, but first I just want to duck into the holding area off Agrippa's pad. Up the stairs to the left is a fine old leg of meat, which we'll be using to bait a well-bound Kank for one of the ingredients. Tampta, which is an otherworld goop found in their saliva. Take the door towards the transept on the wall where Agrippa resides. Go ahead and slap that meat onto a rope and winch it down the well. Wait for the beast to feast and winch the remains back up. Pocket the doggy chew, we'll be processing it later. Keep on chugling, we're off to the transept for some unspeakably hideous tortures.
That's horrible.
Of course. We are dealing with monsters here.
So, Agrippa's orb was split, and parts are found in rooms focused on various bloody awful tortures. That much has already been made clear. Apparently the shards bleed madness, so they make the tortures even more effective to gather more vitae to make more blood wards to keep the shadow at bay, etc. This area is absolutely gorgeous, and were it not for the bloody cells leading off the main area, you probably wouldn't mind paying it a visit and just looking around. Okay, up the spiral staircase first. We need to get some string. A world without string is chaos. chaos. It'll help us get another potion ingredient, the magical vitae. In fact, let's get that now. The right door from the perspective of the entrance houses a dangling post so a dude could be hung up and sawn in half. The orb slices in between two coils of rope, pocket that, and that drain in the middle. Let's have a peek. Whacking the string on the jar, Daniel lowers it down and gets a lovely pint of torture blood. The perfect base for any recipe, I don't care what Nigella Lawson says. In the room to the left of the start, we've got a rack of sorts for breaking victims. Paying that no never mind, our dude scares up another shard in the torture wardrobe. Behind door number 3, we've got the cradle, an outrageous bum splitter from days of yore. Entering this area, Dan remembers a conversation with himself, Alexander, and a prisoner who demands release and asks how they can do these despicable things. Daniel seems shocked, like a guy about to have his ass destroyed would want to be let go, but Alexander soothes him by getting the anus spike warmed up. The orb piece is under a pile of sacks, possibly crammed full of preparation H. He greedily shoves the shard into his breast pocket for safekeeping. It's with extreme reluctance that Daniel dances away from the transept and towards the beckoning black maw of the choir.
If you had accepted your fate, the orb, when you first discovered it, none of this would have happened.
All right, I know, the choir ain't so bad. I've blown it out of proportion. I just remember it being really hard, and it's actually not. But first, plot dollop. Daniel relives a moment between himself and a struggling victim upon whom he performs the blood ward ritual. Dan seems to really be getting into this gig. He thinks this dude is a criminal, and he's singing a mantra of painting the lines, cutting the flesh, even openly mocking the terror of the poor sap on the table. Any pity you may have had for Daniel's situation can easily go out the window here, depending on your feelings towards people who sing while they work. And then there's the line, "I will do whatever it takes." Bam. There you go, full admittance that all lines are blurred for Dan at this point. Such is his desperation. Full monster mode, no man, woman, child, or loaf of bread is safe at this point. We press on. So, the choir. When Daniel enters the area, his eyes are forced to take in the pipes running along the ceiling. These pipes, according to Alexander, are a way of further increasing fear for the prisoners. They connect the torture chambers to the cells, so those being held would hear unspeakable things happening to others, revving up their vitae count even more. If you follow a pipe, you reach a chamber. You reach a chamber and you find an orb shard. Bing! Following the pipes in a hard left leads to the Iron Maiden chamber. It does a naughty jump scare, so be prepared for that. The shard is to the left of the maiden in a cloister thang. Next, continuing to follow the pipe, Daniel comes to a bridge. I remember there being a monster scare here, but I didn't get it this time. Maybe I dallied too long or something. Anywho, the next chamber along is the Brazen Bull. One of the worst tortures I've read about, and I wish I didn't read about it. But there's a giant glowing fungus outside the chamber door. Daniel hits it with the hammer and chipper and grabs the blob inside. Aha! Our final potion ingredient. Bull time. Inside this big brass cow would be placed a person who would then be slowly roasted, their smoke and wails raising out of a pipe in the beast's mouth. Aren't people awful? The orb chip is to the right behind a pillar, so let's nab it and get out of this miserable place. Nearly there. Daniel keeps shuffling to the left out of the Brazen Bull bonanza and has to swing his hefty gams onto a pillar which crosses a ravine gap. Tumbling off awkwardly, he pushes on through the dark, coming to the final chamber, the wheel. Brrr. Frictional do a very good job of making you really feel the grotesque nature of these tortures without having to show them. Sound design kings. Told ya. The final orb chunk is down to the left of the wheel. Cramming the last piece in his fanny pack, Daniel lets out a slow whistle and punches the air. Time to get out of here. Traveling back the way he came, it doesn't take long before he's shaking off the stink of the choir. He'd probably be doing a Naruto run if his arms would let him. That's how elated he is. Danny Boy wobbles his way back to Agrippa, but he can't concoct the potion yet. He needs to access the laboratory up the stairs first, but it's boarded up. Nuts. Only one avenue left for us to explore, the chancel. Opening the door, we get treated to torches blossoming with emerald flames and a crossroad of masonry rendered on a scale that's almost impossible to fathom. Beautiful. But then we get set upon by an entire boy band of grunts, and no matter what you do, there's no escape. It's easy to assume you've fucked up at this point, but if you're patient and wait a few seconds, the scratches will fade from the screen and you're being turfed into a cell. Alexander treats you to a bit of telepathic gloating, and you can indeed just stay in your cell, and you'll die. This is the fourth ending of the game, and it takes about 20 minutes of just standing there doing nothing to achieve. I love how this much thought was put into the game. I mean, I don't think anyone playing would wait 20 minutes to see what happens and would easily assume that there's some means of escape, but I love it nonetheless. Speaking of means of escape, let's get out of here. There's some loose bricks in the cell wall. Give them a whack with the hammer and chipper and then pull the beam on the other side towards the cell, collapsing the wall. Right, a note nearby will mention how a prison guard dropped a key down a pipe, the dope. I mean, come on, it's not surprising. Grunts and brutes can hardly be expected to conduct tasks needing fine motor skills. These guys are basically made out of plasticine. Sad. Grabbing a stool bucket from a cell, Daniel fills it at the well and tips it down the pipe. Using the key on the door, we instantly get hunted by the shadow. I've never been brave enough to look behind me before, but it's represented as this red, evil glow that brings destruction in its wake. So cool. As soon as I spied it, I wish I hadn't because it really gave me the willies. This little obstacle course is really fun. There's a bit where the roof will collapse no matter which side you choose, forcing you to double back while the shadow gets closer. Fucking boss. With leaden footsteps, we just escape the oncoming oblivion and end up back at the start of the hub via a previously locked door. Things have started to tumble down even more. Daniel picks up a note and gives himself a case of the dizzies. Here, more memories come back to him, fresh and painful, seeping into his ruined mind like blood under a locked door. We're treated to a slightly interactive flashback of he and Alexander conducting a nighttime raid on a nearby farm in their search for more victims. It's from here that Elise, the young girl Daniel killed, was originally kidnapped along with her mother. This paints in even more of Daniel's cruelty. I began to look for the children. We should have more than enough prisoners to finish the ritual now. So he's beyond any stage of ignorance here. He knows exactly what he's doing, that he's harvesting innocence to save his own sorry hide. Blinded by hideous self-preservation and fear, the final bricks fall into place around his mind before Elisa's death smashes them down. Nimbly jumping over patches of flesh bubbling up between the stones, we zoom away into the yawning void towards Agrippa's lab. The little bit of light cast here feels refreshing and cleansing after the black press of the stairs and the darkening of Daniel's soul. Right, blood jar onto the Bunsen burner thingy, turn the gas and purify that stuff. Then we need to pop it under the crusher with the fungi pod in the squisher. Then put the juiced up vitae at the end of the doohickey on the bench, plop the nibbled bone in the little door, yank the handle, and whoopee! Agrippa potion complete. For the sake of efficiency, I like to zip to the left right before giving Agrippa his potion so I can grab a bone saw. We'll need it to lop off his head once the potion goes down his neck. All of this ticked off, we jam his head into our back pocket and set off once again for the chancel. This time we have a better opportunity to take in the architecture and design of this penultimate place of peril. It's just beautiful. Mighty, imposing, and strangely alien. The green braziers help with this as well, casting an eerie glow all around. Now, there's a wandering brute here, and I always lose track of him. I'm not sure if he beams off after a while or if he's always present, patrolling. He crisscrosses the bridge, goes to the storeroom, the center, the entrance, and I believe to the orb room. He's not hard to avoid, you just need to be patient, but more often than not, I accidentally run into him when I think he's somewhere else. It's all good. Just wait him out and then take care of business. So, in the orb room, we've got a 10 out of 10 badass ye old Event Horizon magical/mechanical gate to the inner sanctum. Pushing through will give you a zap, so don't do that. Putting your orb pieces in the receptacle won't do anything until you have something to stick them together with, namely some tar. That's in the only other available destination, so let's go there now. Mr. Ugly has long since departed, so let's rifle through what's been left lying around and nab a jug of tar off a shelf. This will be our ball glue. To save on backtracking, heft one of the rocks on the floor and toss it into the clanking cogwheels down the stairs. This will destroy the mechanical part of the Event Horizon gateway. Taking care to avoid the tame brute, Daniel bunny hops his way back to the orb receptacle and sticks the whole mess together, reforming Leo DiCaprio once again. The gate shut down, Danny steers his knocking knees towards the dread portal of the inner sanctum and steps inside.
Good and evil. Such comforting concepts, but hardly applicable.
Almost there, Daniel. Almost there. Before we can give Alexander the jawbreaker treatment with our swollen blue ball, Dan has to make a charitable donation of blood and step into 2 floor markers to make the way clear. Once both circles have been activated, the shadow will really start to impress upon you the error of artifact shoplifting. Flesh growths will sprout from all around and attack you repeatedly, probably making you think you're gonna die. But struggle through and slip through the now raised portal to the orb chamber. Big boss time. The chamber is eye-watering in its ancient design and in its thoughtful inclusion of Alexander's proudly naked old man peen. This is our final destination. Time to get busy. Due to helping Agrippa, Alexander spouts some totally fire bars about good and evil, questioning as to whether we think he's still the villain. This obvious poking of the player would be a little bit on the nose if it weren't for the cleanness of the writing and delivery and the sheer brilliance of the ghost train adventure we'd been on to get here. If you don't help Agrippa, Alexander will ruminate over how filled with hate Daniel is, and how he's truly a lost soul. These sorts of selfish game endings never really sit well with me. I'm always gonna be the dude rescuing the little sisters in BioShock, guys. It's just who I am. But I understand if folks like to play the selfish way. From here we can achieve one of 3 endings, discounting the possible 4th ending in the cells. There's Daniel's ending, Agrippa's ending, and Alexander's ending. If you push over the pylons, which is super easy, we get Daniel's ending. Alexander's a bit of a dope for having such a flaw in his master plan, but what can you do? This ending sees Alex getting dissolved by the shadow which bursts in, fleshifying the chamber. Daniel then walks back through sections of the castle feeling that he's vindicated himself by eliminating what he considers to be the big bad. This ending is fine, but due to how I perceive Daniel despite being manipulated, I feel he's getting away with too much, considering everything he did was entirely self-motivated regardless of Alexander's death. If you use Agrippa's head and fling it into the portal, Daniel and Alexander both die, and Dan walks through a void space with Agrippa calling out to Via to help Daniel, as we deserve so much more than a simple death from the shadow. Agrippa reassures our spirit that everything will be alright, and boom, fade to black. This is the truly good ending, and the one I feel resolves matters the best. It offers hope through Daniel's act of contrition and self-sacrifice. Nice and sad too, and it fits perfectly with the story. No walking away into the sunset for me. However, to achieve this ending, you need to wait around for ages for the portal to take hold. I thought I was doing something wrong or hadn't approached a certain point to trigger the portal, but I think you're just supposed to wait. So patience is required by those wanting a less fast food ending than tipping over the pylons. Alexander's ending also has a satisfying ring to it in its own way. You also have to wait around for a long time for the portal to open, and then Alexander floats towards the light. Daniel's left alone to hear the pleading cries of Elise and his other victims while the shadow gets its due. If you really despise Daniel for his actions, you'll feel properly chuffed by this conclusion. In a starless void, Daniel is thanked wholeheartedly and sincerely by Alexander, who promises that he will be celebrated forever. Plenty to think about concerning choice and control as the curtain falls on Amnesia: The Dark Descent. It is, in and of itself, a very introspective game that doesn't go overboard with huge cerebral ideas, but instead offers up thoughts that cut to the very bone of what makes us human and what makes us monsters. Love this game. I understand if it's not everyone's cup of vitae. Plenty of folks don't like horror games. Plenty of folks don't like medium to slow-paced games in general. And plenty of folks don't even like being scared. But I find every aspect of it is superbly well crafted, from its heart-pounding spooks to its quiet, insidious moments that chill me far greater than the biggest jump scare. Thanks for watching. Have a very happy Halloween. And if you venture out into the dark tonight, or the next night, or the night after that, make sure you bathe yourself in the safety of a lantern's glow.